Hi readers, Chris here. Today I'm going to be talking about my most disappointing books of 2021. Let me be clear right off the bat that I am not saying that any of these books are bad. It's just that these particular books did not jive with me. I did not like them. Some of them physically made me angry. And again, these are just my opinions. Some of you may love these books. In fact, I know some of these books are popular and I'm probably in the minority, but that's okay. It's my list. So let's jump in with my number one disappointing book of 2021, and that's going to be Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Now, I read this book last year in February. I have never read a Jojo Moyes book before. I haven't read like a lot of adult romance before, but it was February, Valentine's Day. I really wanted to. So I found this one at a book sale, picked it up, brought it home, read it, and I absolutely hated it. Oh my God. I hated it. If you're not familiar with the story, like really super quick, you have one girl who went through a traumatic experience earlier in her life, so she's kind of emotionally like closed off. She's just kind of floating through life, like she's very ditzy and blah, 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 blah. And then there's this other guy, comes from a wealthy family, used to be like this big hotshot playboy. He got in an accident. He's now a quadriplegic who's miserable, hates his life, hates the world, wants to kill himself. The two meet, they learn things from each other, they fall in love, etc., etc. I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but basically, these two characters are just they were so awful in different ways. So awful. Like, you have the one guy, quadriplegic. I'm sorry, like, I just have a huge problem because I know people in my life that have been through situations where they've had to take care of people that have had, medical issues, let's say. And I don't care what's going on with you. Nothing gives you the right to treat someone else like complete crap. You can be miserable and you can hate your life and you can hate your situation. Do not take that out on other people, especially people that care about you and that are trying to help you. So I thought that Will's character was a total jerk and I hated him. Then on the other side, the girl's character, whose name I don't even remember, she was just so, like, flighty and so obnoxious and so, I hate to say it like this, but she was so stupid. So stupid. Just for example, she takes Will, who's in a wheelchair, out to a racetrack. She knows he's in a wheelchair. She parks on the grass, like, not even near where they have to go. Like, I don't think it takes a college degree to know that you should probably find handicap parking or at least not park in the grass, because otherwise how are you gonna maneuver the chair? Like, she was just so stupid when it came to things like that, and it just made me super angry because as someone who has worked with, people that have had varying disabilities, like, it's not that hard to pick up the phone and be like, hey, I'm coming to your location. I'm bringing someone who needs X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. We need a door by the window. Do you have handicap parking? Do you have accessible entrances? Whatever it is, all you have to do is pick up the phone and make a phone call. And the fact that she couldn't do that, like, and yes, I'm sure part of it was for the sake of the story, but it just made me so angry. So, end of the day, didn't like these characters, didn't like this book. Yes, I did a full review on it, and I even went so far as comparing the book to the movie, which I think was the last time I did one of those videos. One of these days, I'd really like to get back to that because I love book versus movie talk, but if you're interested, I'll link them either up there or down below when I edit this video. Now that I've ranted on that one for way too long, book number 2 is going to be Siege and Storm, the second book in the Grishaverse. I guess not the Grishaverse, the Shadow and Bone series. I think the Grishaverse is technically like all the books. But anyway, Shadow and Bone, book 2 was Siege and Storm. We have a young girl, Alina. She's just found out that she has like this power of the light. She's a sun summoner. She can summon this magic that no one else has. She's trying to fight this guy called the Darkling. He has the dark power, and she's like going after this mythical creature to try and get more powerful. I thought book 1 in this series was pretty good, but like, it was okay. It was okay. I thought Alina was kind of a blank slate. I think she needed a lot more development. I was looking forward to that in book 2. I was looking forward to learning more about the Darkling because I thought he was a cool villain. None of that happened. None of that happened. The Darkling is barely in the book at all, so boo. What is in the book is her relationship with a different guy. His name is Mal. And he's just the worst. He's the worst. He's like one of those people that's like, well, if I can't have you, no one can. Ugh, I couldn't stand him in this book. Couldn't stand him in this book. Alina still doesn't have a lot of development. Like, there's still not a lot that goes on. Pretty much nothing happens in this book until, like, the end. The only thing that saved it a little bit is that there's an introduction of a new character, Nikolai, and I absolutely loved him. He's the only thing that saved this book for me. But overall, it was a big disappointment and definitely not one of my favorites of the year. Next up is the first of Stephen King books that are on this list, The Talisman. Yes, hey, I put 2, not 1, but 2 Stephen King books on my best list for the year. He's allowed to be on the worst list as well. So The Talisman was a collaboration between Stephen King and Peter Straub. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I had heard a lot about this book, and I heard that it was kind of like an Odyssey type thing. We have a young boy named Jack. He kind of goes on this quest in another world. He's trying to save his mother's life, etc., etc. I thought that this book, like, it has all of the worst Stephen King things in it. It's like Stephen King can be super wordy sometimes. And this book is a prime example of that. It is so wordy and it's so unnecessary. There are so many things in this book that are unnecessary. Like, he meets this friend, Wolf, who's like basically like a werewolf, but he's not like super smart. He's kind of an idiot, or like an idiot savant. And he takes Wolf to like a movie theater, and it's like, none of that has anything to do with like the main plot of the story. If you removed those things, it wouldn't change the story at all. And there's a lot of that. It's almost 800 pages long. And I'd say like 50% of this book is unnecessary. It is so wordy. It just goes on and on and on. There wasn't anything in it that I really latched onto. So it was just a disappointing read. I've read a lot of Stephen King books at this point. Not all of them are good, and this is one of them that is not. So I will say I know a ton of people do like this one, and I don't know why, but if you are one of them, let me know in the comments section below. There is a sequel to this. I am going to read it because I have to as part of my Stephen King journey, so hopefully I will connect with that one better. Next up, I have Fallen Skies by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory is another one of my all-time favorite authors. You might know her from The Other Boleyn Girl, but she writes a ton of historical fiction. She's got over 20 books out. She's got at least like 30 or 40. I think I've read over 20 of them. I've read a ton of Philippa Gregory books. When I saw this one, I was super excited because most of her books take place in like Tudor era England, or even like prior to that. Like, a lot of her stuff takes place in that sort of era, and this one is actually a World War I historical fiction. That's not a time frame I've ever seen her tackle before, so I was super interested in this story. We have a soldier, a captain. He's kind of older. He's just come back from the war. He's suffering with severe PTSD. He meets this young chorus girl named Lily, who's kind of silly and flighty. She's young, so she hasn't really been affected by the war. So she kind of reminds him and like represents this more innocent time. He wants to make her his. She decides to kind of go along with it because she likes that he has money. And what ends up happening is this very toxic relationship. Super toxic. But again, we have two characters here that I don't like either of them. It's easy to dislike Stephen because of his PTSD. He is abusive. He's physically abusive. He is verbally abusive. Like, he's straight up crazy. He has a lot of issues. But Lily, on the other hand, like, in the beginning, you do feel a little bad for her because she kind of gets sucked in. But at a point, it's like, you're making the decision to stay with him and go along with his requests and stuff, and you don't have to. So it's your own fault. She's staying with him for financial gain so that she can further her career, so she can have nice things. So she's not really that great of a person either. They're two people who are both kind of assholes, and they're assholes together. So it just made reading this story not enjoyable. Not enjoyable at all. And at the end of it, I found myself wondering, what was the point of this? I don't know what the point of this story was. But again, that's okay. Philippa Gregory has a ton of great other books. This is just not one that I would recommend. Next up, I have a book from the Artemis Fowl series. Dun, da, da. Yes, I really enjoyed the first 4 Artemis Fowl books, but the second half of the series I've had some problems with. No more, though, than this one, which is the Time Paradox. I believe this is book 6, I want to say. I believe this is book 6. It would take so much time to go into the details, but basically we have a young 12-year-old boy, Artemis. He is like a genius. He has a fairy sidekick. Her name is Holly. They've gone on a ton of adventures by this point in the series, but basically something happens. Artemis's mother gets sick, and it forces them to kind of travel through time into the past, back to the events of book 1, and do certain things. Hijinks ensue. The things that Artemis does in this book, in the decisions that he made, really, really rubbed me the wrong way. Really rubbed me the wrong way. So there is this scene where Artemis's younger self basically kills an animal. Like, he might not have pulled the trigger, but he basically killed this animal. And as someone who loves my animals, it really rubbed me the wrong way, and I couldn't get over it. I could not get over it. I could not get past it. Not only that, but he also does some things in this book that are, like, really not good. Like, he lies to Holly. He lies to his friends. He manipulates people into getting what he wants. He just makes some really selfish decisions, and I did not like him in this book at all. In fact, it really took me like 2 or 3 books after this to kind of forgive him, because yes, he's supposed to be this criminal mastermind, but he's just a little boy at the end of the day. Like, there's nothing that bad about him until this book, but not in a fun way, in a, wow, that's really disappointing way. So luckily the books do get better after this one, but for this particular book was super not fun. Next up, we have a second Stephen King book. Yes, that's right. 2 on the best list, 2 on the worst list, and that's going to be Cycle of the Werewolf. This is a very short tale that's actually like part graphic novel, part book. It's basically told through all these different little vignettes. So in the beginning, we have, it's January, and we're told a little tale about someone in this town that gets attacked by a werewolf. Every chapter is a different month. So we have January, then we have February. We go through all the months, and each month tells a little tale about a different person in this town. And over the course of these tales, there's all these like little clues where you start to put together who the werewolf might be. It might be someone in town. It might be someone from outside of town. When I first started reading this, I thought that this was such a unique setup and super, super cool. And I was waiting for this like big like reveal, or like some shocking like, ooh, it's that person. I never expected that. I'd say by the time you get to about May, June, you know who the werewolf is. You know who it is. It's not a secret. It becomes blatantly obvious who the werewolf is by, like I said, about halfway through, and nothing changes that throughout the rest of the book. So by the time I got to the end, I was wondering, like, why was it so easy to figure out who the werewolf was? Was that intentional? And if it was intentional, then what the hell was the point of this? Because it started off, I thought that it was going to be this like super cool murder mystery, and that's not what it is at all. So maybe it's my fault for having a super wrong expectation of what this was supposed to be, but at the end of the day, I can't change the fact that I was super disappointed and not thrilled with this one at all. Last up on my list is the most recent book that I reviewed, which is The Bright and the Pale. I have already talked about this book in other videos. I just did a review on it, so there's really not that much more I can say other than reiterate the fact again. I don't like it when books, especially the first book, ends on a cliffhanger. No. So over that. I've said it before, I'll say it again. No cliffhangers. If you want to do it by like book 2 or 3 in a series, fine. I'm already invested. I'm going to keep reading no matter what. Don't do it on book 1. That's all I'm going to say for now. So those are the books that I picked for my most disappointing books of 2021. I want to know from you what your most disappointing reads were from last year. Were there any of these books? Did you love some of these books that I named? Let me know in the comment sections below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. Jack and I would very much appreciate it. Even though Jack's a little bit sleepy right now, he will be up and ready for some unboxing videos next week. All right, everyone. Happy reading. Can you say bye, Jack? Bye. I know. Oh, you're a good boy.